Hello everyone, welcome to the CZ Armor channel. It's been a while, I know. I've been waiting for a few months now, ever since the Shadow 2 Carry was released. And I finally got a couple here in the shop that I can go over the details. I can share my first impressions, my opinion on what I like, what I don't, whether or not I think is a good option for carry. And also, I think that's where I'm going to spend most of the time in this video, is just comparing the Shadow 2, the newly released Shadow 2 Carry with the Shadow 2 Compact. We're going to go over the differences. And I'm going to try to emphasize the things that you should take in consideration when choosing one model over the other. Is that for competition or carry or however you want to use it? Before we get there, let me take this out of the way. I'm not going to do any modification, swapping any parts, doing any performance tuning, any change whatsoever to the firearms in this video. They are bare bones stock firearms that I'm just going to simply take them out of the box and go over my impressions and basically talk about things that are publicly available and well documented in the manuals of these firearms. Okay, the first difference that I see here is the case. So the case that the Shadow 2 Carry comes on feels a lot more premium. It's kind of a cloth outside. It has this kind of a waterproof zipper. It looks like it feels really like a good premium case, as opposed to that plastic, polymer case that all the other Shadow 2s I've ever had in my hands look like. Let me show you just so you have a comparison here. So this is what, just to remind you, this is what a regular Shadow 2 box looks like to this day. Now the Shadow 2 Carry comes with this nice one here. I really like it. So inside, this is a pre-owned gun. Like a friend has this gun, and it just was nice enough to let me borrow through the video. So it isn't really exactly like that. It comes inside, but this is what the case feels like. Has some hard foam, memory foam inside, the manual, everything in this other compartment here. Yeah, all that stuff that brushes and regular things that you always had in these guns. And this is what it looks like. It's unloaded. Nothing in the magwell, nothing in the chamber, so we're safe to talk about it and start comparing it to the Shadow 2 Compact. So I've got a Compact here. I'm going to start talking about both of them. All right, I got here a Shadow 2 Compact and a Shadow 2 Carry. You're going to easily identify them on a video because they're different colors. The copperhead one here is my Compact, and this one is the friend's Shadow 2 Carry. So let's talk about the differences that we see here besides the case. So the case is different, as I said. Now we got the front side. Let's start from front to the back. The front side is a completely different system. So front side in the Compact is a traditional one that you see on the other CZs, the CZs that have a bushing on. You have this retaining pin that goes across the top of the slide here, and that retain both the front side and the bushing. So one pin retains both parts. So if you need to take the front side out or the bushing out, you need to take this retaining pin off. And let's say you're going to shoot just carry optics, you don't want any front sight on, you still need to put the pin back because that pin keeps the bushing in place. The Compact comes with a different system. The pin is still there, but it's here just to retain the bushing. It's not used to retain the front sight anymore. As you can see, the front sight is just a dovetail system. It goes in by pressure here and a tight fit with the dovetail, and the retaining pin here is really just for the bushing. So that's the first difference. The front sight that comes on it is also one of those they call luminescent. So there's kind of like a night sight. It's not really as good. I put this in the dark and it doesn't really, it's not really glowing in the dark, but it is kind of better than if it was just black. And that's also true for the rear sight, which we're going to talk about when we get there. On the Compact, it's a traditional fiber optic front sight. So as we move back, slides are identical, not much of a difference. And then we get into the optics area here. The Shadow 2 Compact is a optic ready model, just like you see the Shadow 2 Optics Ready. Same thing, same system, that crucifix system that latches into the slide and uses different plates for different footprints of optics. The good thing about this is you can use pretty much any optic in the market, regardless of its footprint. All you have is to have the matching plate for it, and it works just fine. And the Carry comes with an interesting difference here. The Carry is a direct cut in the slide for the RMS footprint. But basically is a direct cut in the slide and an RMS footprint only. So The good thing on that is it sits really low. You can compare the height on where these optics are sitting. You see that the one in the front sits lower, considerably lower than the one in the compact. So this gives you a little bit less offset between the point of impact on the barrel and the dot in the optic. The only disadvantage here is that it only works for RMS footprint. So, but that's no big deal because this is really a carry-oriented gun, and most of the carry-oriented dots are RMS good, and which a lot of the good ones are. So this one is the Hollow Sun EPS carry, and it looks like a really good option for this gun. All right, moving back, you have then a dedicated rear sight. That is a important difference. You don't have that in a compact at all. If you want a co-witness rear sight, and a lot of people for carrying, they like to have the comfort, the peace of mind of having a rear sight just in case their dot goes bad. And by the way, dots do go bad. I just had 2 that broke on me in the last 3 months. It's competition, so they're putting under a different level of stress than they would be in your carry gun. But nonetheless, it just proves the point that they are an electronic device and they will break at some point. So if that happens on your carry gun, having the rear sight is a really good option. Your compact doesn't have that dedicated rear sight. You still can have a co-witness rear sight if you want. There are plates out there that have a rear sight that you can use, and that will give you that peace of mind, but it's not on the gun. On the carry, it's a dedicated rear sight there with those 2 dots, luminescent dots as they call, kind of a night sight, and it's always there for you regardless of the dot you're going to use. Hammer, the hammer is the same. Obviously, there will be a difference, an internal difference. Actually, they are a little bit different. Yeah, they're about the same hammer. The difference here is going to be in the fact that this one has a decocker, so internally this hammer is different than this one, which is just a safety. But let's continue looking to the external differences before we start talking about what's different inside. Slide stop is a different design on the compact, on the carry, than it is in the compact. So you can tell the compact and the carry have a different design on the slide stop. I do like this a lot. The one in the compact, the one in the carry. It's just a slide stop. They are internally the same. They're interchangeable, but this design outside is slightly different on the carry. The mag release button. This is like a traditional CZ75 one. Doesn't have that nice fancy button that you have in the other Shadow 2s out there, including the compact. So compact has this little button here. You can also use the Shadow 2 full-size button here if you want, if that is your preference. But here you cannot do anything about it. It's just the simple button that you have on your CZ75 traditional SPO1s, and even in Tactical Sports family, like the more modest models come this button. So it works just fine, not a problem. The other one is more like statics than anything else in my opinion. But then obviously the biggest difference is here. You see a retaining pin going across your slide here on the carry that you do not see on the compact. There's no retaining pin here, right? And that is because on this one you have a firing pin block, and this you don't. So this is one of the main differences here. And then the other thing obviously is the decocker. So decocker that you use here to basically get your hammer down without having to pinch. Like a lot of people, I remember like when CZ released the Shadow 2 compact first, a lot of the comments from people that got the gun to use as an everyday carry was they wish there was a decocker, they wish there was a firing pin block, right? So well, this one is, it looks like CZ heard you, and they did basically the same gun with the options that you wanted, a decocker and a firing pin block. So this is a mini Shadow with a firing pin block. So drop safe, completely drop safe, no matter what modifications you're gonna do here. Unless you disable the firing pin block, this thing is still gonna be drop safe. And it has a decocker, so you don't have to do that traditional pinching the hammer to decock it. You can use the decocker to do it. I think this is it as much as we see in terms of external differences. There's nothing else that I see here that is different. The decocker is ambidextrous, you have both sides. Same thing with the compact, you don't have a decocker, you have a safety, and it is also ambidextrous, you have safety on both sides. I have an extended one here on the left side because I like to ride my thumb on the safety on the guns that I compete with, the Tactical Sports, the Shadow 2, they all have extended safeties, and I had my thumb riding here. This is important for you to remember. It's going to be one of the things I'm going to talk about on why I wouldn't carry this one with the decocker. Let's go see the differences inside, if there are any. All right, to kind of a few strip them both is the same system. You're going to go here. Oh, the alignment here, that's interesting. The notches that they put here for you to align and remove the slide stop on the carry, it's right here at the end of the serrations in the front, versus the compact, which is pretty much like all the other shadows, it's back here at the back of the serrations. So I think it's because, you know, your decocker comes all the way to the end here, so it would kind of hide that, so they do that. So we just line that up, and once they're lined up, you just push your slide stop out. Slide stop comes out. You can then separate the slide from the frame. Same thing in the compact. I'll put this side here. All right. So what differences do we see here? Frame first. Both frames are aluminum. By the way, both guns weigh about the same, 30 ounces. So they are the same weight. Both frames are the same aluminum kind of alloy. So not steel, slide steel, aluminum frame. Trigger bar, trigger turn spring, slide stop spring, everything seems to be the same. Mag catch release, all the same system here you see in them. Pretty identical, same ejector system. And then we come to the sear cage where we're going to see a really different system here. So here's what I want you to see here. Let me start with the compact. On the compact, you got your sear. There's a sear spring here in the middle and the ejector right here. And that's pretty much it. You don't have anything else here. It's basically the ejector, kind of the sear is housed by the ejector, or like this, what they call sear cage. Then you got a sear spring, and that's it. So the safety here goes in across, meets this one on the other side, and keeps everything together. Now on the carry, you got a lot more than just the safety and just the sear and the sear spring here. So you got the sear, you got the sear spring, and then you get, well, first of all, on the right side here, you got this little extra part, this little lever here. This is the frying pan block lifter arm. There is a thin hair spring on its right side here that keeps it tension. So when I pull it up, it goes back in, just like so, right? So that's one spring, one part, and then you have a second spring. This is your sear spring, then the sear, and then you have a third part with the spring, which is your decocker arm and its spring. So a lot of parts, like 1, 2, 3, 4 additional parts within this sear cage compared to the compact. There's also another important difference. You will see that there is a pin. See this pin hidden here by the decocker? This is the pin, the retaining pin that keep the sear decocker arm, the frying pan block lifted arm, and all the springs all together within the sear cage. So it's separate, independent from the decocker. How about the slide? Well, let me get the other slide to show you the difference on the cut, on the optic cut. All right. Okay, so here's the cut, right? You see it's a direct cut in the slide. There's no plate system. It has those little lugs there that the optic latches in. And then it's an RMS cut, RMS footprint cut. You can use any RMS dot, so different than the compact one. All right, so guiding rod, absolutely the same guiding rod. Spring is captive to it. People change this by a regular guiding rod so they can play with multiple, like different weight springs. And the same barrel, it's a 4-inch barrel with a single lug, locking lug. Same that you see in the compact, no difference there. That's the carry, that's the compact, same guiding rod, captive spring, 4-inch barrel, and a single locking lug. Same. Extractor is exactly the same system, retained by a perpendicular pin. You can see the pin here. That's the pin that holds your extractor in place, and it is there in both. That's your extractor, external extractor, right? Traditional from CZs. And then you have a firing pin block, the firing pin block itself here that you don't have when the compact. Compact is, there's firing pin block on the carry, absence of a firing pin block in the compact. That's pretty much the differences that we see here on the slide. Now let's talk about what difference these parts make. This decocker, this firing pin block, and in the field, and whether or not this is the best option for carry, and so on. Well, I'm gonna put them together again. Nothing else for us to talk about internally. So here's the first thing that I'm gonna say that you need to pay attention to. You need to be very careful with this. Shadow 2 Compact, I can do this as many times as I want. There is no issue in doing so. I can dry fire this thing, double action, single action as many times as I want, no problem at all. Why? Well, there's nothing here. The only wear and tearing I'm putting on this is springs, right? Springs are being used, are being compressed and decompressed every time I put the trigger. It's also heat and fine paint, so there's some impact there, but you can do this thousands of times and not have a single problem with this. Here, not so much. You should not dry fire this gun without any sort of protection. Why? Remember that retaining firing pin pin that we talked about? Well, if there's nothing holding, if there's not a snap cap like a dummy round or some sort of protection to prevent the hammer to hit the firing pin, what's going to happen here? If the hammer hits the firing pin and there's not a dummy round there, the firing pin is going to go forward beyond where it should go. That extra distance that it will try to travel forward, it's going to translate into impact to this pin. Eventually, this pin is just a roll pin. Your firing pin is solid steel. So eventually, solid steel against a roll pin, the roll pin is going to give. It's going to break, right? Either break or bend, and it's going to make your gun inoperable. So this, for a carry gun, it's a no-no, right? So you want this gun to be 100% reliable 100% of the time. So if you're gonna dry fire, and I'm sure you will, put some protection here. This could be an O-ring. I have a video talking about this if you need more details about it, but put an O-ring here protecting your firing pin, or use a dummy round when you dry fire. So that's the first difference I want to talk about. First thing that is important, right? The other thing is the trigger feel. So this, on the carry, it does feel like a much longer pull all the way until it breaks in the double action. And in a single action, you're also going to notice something different here. As you start pulling the trigger, it hit this wall, you think it's a wall, and then it keeps pushing. It feels like there's friction with something going on there until I hit the second wall. So this first wall is just your firing pin lifter arm that you engaged. And now you need to push it to lift that arm. And then you keep pushing, and then you have a lot of roll, break here, and then it breaks. A lot of kind of a rolling wall, right? So again, I put like single fake wall. It's actually a firing pin block lifter arm. Keep going back. Second wall, which is your sear, and then there's all this rolling, and then it breaks. If you compare with the compact is a good old Shadow 2 full-size trigger. So first of all, your double action is much shorter than your single, than the double action in the carry. And your single action here is just a real wall. There's no lifter, firing pin block lifter arm here. And then you keep pushing. There's a little bit of a rolling wall too, and then it breaks. But much shorter, much better than the carry, in my opinion. So the reset is also, that's a reset on the carry. That's as much as you have, a little bit of pre-travel, and then it breaks. Versus, that's all, look at how much further it goes until it reset. And then it resets, and then you get all this pre-travel here. It has to have this pre-travel, because what this does, it gives the time to pull. Look, I want you to look into this area here, which is your firing pin block lifter arm. You're gonna see right here on this side. If I can get it right there, right there. I wanted to look at what happens there when I use that pre-travel. You see how that thing goes up and down? That's your firing pin lifter arm, firing pin block lifter arm. So that pre-travel, that whole travel that exists in this trigger is actually necessary. It's by design. It's so you have the right timing to have a firing pin block lifted arm, disable the firing pin block, so you can actually pull the trigger and the gun will fire. That's basically the main differences here. Like trigger wise, the compact has a much better trigger, but in terms of carrying, this would be a safer option. Now, opinion. Now it's time for the opinion thing. Would I carry the carry one? No. The reason I would not carry this one, I carry the compact and not the carry, is because of the safety. And I said before, the way I ride my thumb, my strong hand thumb on the safety, I do that all the time. All my tactical sports, my Checkmate, my Shadow 2, my SPO1, they all have extended safeties, and I shoot all of them. Even like when I shoot 2011s, 1911s, I do with my thumb riding on the safety. So what happens when I transfer to this one is my thumb is gonna be there, but there's no safety for it to ride. It's gonna potentially accidentally touch the decocker. If this happens while you're shooting, you decock your gun, then you can't shoot anymore. Or it's gonna move to a double action trigger. Anyways, it's gonna introduce something there that is not really gonna be helpful for you to draw and make that first shot as fast as possible, which is what you want with your carry gun. So it's me, and very particular to me, because the way I compete with, the way I have other CZs tuned for competition, and the way I compete, the way I hold my guns, my grip. So it's not something for everyone, but I feel safer and better carrying a Shadow 2 compact instead. But overall, like I said in the beginning of the video, CZ did a fantastic job with this, and they definitely listened to their user base, because we saw so many comments and so many people talking about the fact that they love the compact, but it's missing a decocker and a firing pin block. Well, this is your compact with a firing pin block and a decocker. So this is it. Shadow 2 compact, Shadow 2 carry, Shadow 2 compact, pick your poison. Another set of fantastic guns from CZ. Thank you very much. See you next video.